Tell me, how did you get started in the builder space?
Yeah, it goes way back. As a kid, my dad owned a paint company. I'd drive around all these neighborhoods and say, someday I'm going to build those. Little did I know I was going to have a custom home building company 25 years later, but it's kind of where it got started.
Well, two natives in the same room. I wonder if that's currently allowed.
Oh,
I know there's
yeah.
there's a moratorium right now on data centers, and I think natives congregating in too many groups. Because our governor's just making some great choices. I remember you and I were looking at a plot of land for one client in particular that had a large amount of car needs, and he wanted underground parking, right? And you're like, we're probably one of the only guys in town because we built underground parking. If anybody's listening to this and thinking about remodeling, what do they need to think about or approach this with?
The best tool that we see, and we help support this in-house and sometimes working with designers, is visualization of how a space actually feels.
Everyone wants a soaker tub. I can tell you 9 times out of 10, that soaker tub becomes the laundry dump ground. What you have to do is you have to say, okay, are you really going to use the tub, or are there other ways that you will actually go stress relief? Are there other ways that you will find zen? Us digging deep to really find out what's their heart after to be able to deliver it.
Meanwhile, we have to, on the front end, set a budget that's achievable. So there's this balance, and this is maybe a commercial pre-construction game that we always played, is set a budget that's possible and also tight enough that it meets the client's needs of not spending too much, and then work through the decisions to make sure that they're staying on budget and on time and meeting the aesthetic target. But that's a fine game to do. In a small single room context, that's easier. In a large scale renovation of a house, there's a lot of things to track.
Costs can go crazy, especially if you're like, oh yeah, I'll take that better tile and that better granite, and oh, can you just do this over here, and could you just do this? Just ticks it up. How are trades? Are you struggling getting trades? Are you seeing the cost of trades go up, go down?
That's probably the biggest struggle, is just trying to have a predictable schedule that they can rely on, they can show up and be efficient. That's definitely a commercial construction mindset, is we have a pretty organized trade flow and how it happens on a project. If we get derailed, we know really keenly how much of an impact that is on the subs.
If you were 18 years old right now and you didn't, want to go into college or anything else, go into one of these trades. Electrician, plumber, mason, anything of this nature, right?
The ones that are doing renovations that we've run a lot of work on recently are doing that because they love the area. I don't know if the interest rate is the key driver. I think it's more the location.
If I'm wanting to think about buying a parcel of land or building a house, what are the things that I should think about?
Number one is, where do you want to be? Target location for sure is going to drive probably the first 5 or 10 evaluation points. After that, it's all about how do you use it? What are you trying to accomplish?
Well, then you could even go crazy, like in Kiowa, where there's almost no regulations, and you could build a castle if you so desired. I don't know if that's wise, but
I can kill your dreams in 5 minutes, or I can give you a sense of hope, right? And you'd rather know that going into your next step than just guessing.
All right, let's get into Franklin. So you bought a piece of property on Wash Park. Now, correct me if I'm wrong. Wasn't it one of the larger lots?
It's a little larger than normal. So the typical Denver double, the 6,250 square foot lot, is all over town. This one's 8,050. So it's 1,800 square feet bigger than the normal.
One of the coolest streets in all of Colorado.
Sure.
Franklin, right? Because it faces Wash Park. Tell me a little bit about this project. Hey, this is Rob Tate, host of the Rob Tate Advisory Podcast. I really hope you enjoy this next episode. Please be sure to like and subscribe to this. We really are intentional about bringing you some of the best experts around. Our goal is not only to be informative, but also entertaining and funny. We really want you guys to have value of this. Make sure that you're updated every time we shoot out an episode. Like and subscribe here. Hey, this is Rob Tate with Dynasty Group and England Volkers. I have one of my dear friends and guests here, Jesse with FHG Builders. Jesse, thank you so much for joining us.
Yeah, my pleasure. Good to be here.
So, Jesse, you are one of those people beautifying Denver. Tell me, how did you get started in the builder space?
Yeah, it goes way back. As a kid, my dad owned a paint company and was in the truck with him, driving all over town, projects all over the place. Probably most directly got interested in custom homes in high school. We started painting a lot of custom homes and I was paying the bills and eventually carried into painting my way through college. And I'd drive around all these neighborhoods and say, someday I'm going to build those. Little did I know I was going to have a custom home building company 25 years later, but it's kind of where it got started.
Okay. So just driving around Denver being like, I'm going to make my mark.
Yeah, and we would paint all the custom homes around in some Observatory Park. Not many in Wash Park, interestingly, even though we spent a lot of time around here as teenagers and college kids. Quite a few in Douglas County and a few in Cherry Hills. So a lot of the neighborhoods that I would go in to do work, I was like, someday I'm going to do stuff here.
Yeah. That's right. Are you a Denver? Are you a native?
Yeah, I grew up in Parker.
Oh, you're a P-Town native. For those of you who don't know, that's what it's called, a P-Town native. What, two natives in the same room? I wonder if that's currently allowed. I know there's there's a moratorium right now on data centers, and I think natives congregating in too many groups because our governor's just making some great choices. So, what was the first company you started doing custom homes for?
Building myself was just FHG. I took over a business from my friend. But growing up, we built for a variety of builders, and some of them are not around anymore. They didn't make it through the 07, 08 bust. A few that in Douglas County that still are around, but they were relationships with my dad, going way back, and one-off here and there, kind of infill properties. But none of the names that you would search online anymore. Most of them have come and gone.
Okay. So right now, your current business model, I know you do renovations and, ground up builds, right? What would you say the percent, right? How much is renovations? How much is ground up builds?
Yeah, I kind of split that into two ways to communicate it. One is by revenue. We do about 70% of our revenue last year and this year is actually commercial. So building a wedding venue, which has a lot of the same attributes as a custom home with high-end finishes and really nice. And then we're doing a renovation for a nonprofit. So the revenue dollar-wise is about 65-70% commercial. Project count, we are doing 3 to 5 custom homes a year ground up, and then another 3 to 5, $500,000 to over $1 million renovations.
Okay.
And by volume, it's 65% dollar-wise. By project count, it's the other way. It's inverse. Around 70% of our projects are residential.
Okay.
That's the business I took over, was a resi company that a friend of mine started in 2019.
And your background is a little bit more commercial.
Definitely, yeah.
Yeah. Well, and I think that makes you kind of unique. I remember you and I were looking at a plot of land for one client in particular that had a large amount of car needs, and he wanted underground parking, right? And you're like, we're probably one of the only guys in town because we built underground parking.
Yeah. So kind of the rest of the story from growing up painting and painting my way through college and high school and then college. I have a undergrad degree in architectural engineering, and quickly in school realized I didn't want to be an engineer. So I started pursuing construction, graduated and took a job in commercial construction. So I worked from graduation of college till 2023 actively in commercial construction, started transitioning, and then took over the business doing custom homes in 24. So most of my background and experience is large commercial construction. Okay. So yeah, the comment on the parking garage, we built high rises and office buildings in Denver and all over the place with underground parking and apartments, office, school. That's all of my background is definitely commercial.
Yeah. So if you want a cool underground bunker or parking of your residential house, call you guys.
Yeah. And just process wise, I mean, that's my business partner and I are both from that background. So that's the nature of how we engage in projects is more from a systematic approach of what commercial construction teaches you, and the network of people that we know. That's the way we've always operated. And so we're not a builder who came up framing houses and then eventually started building, because transitioning from framing to doing a larger GC scope is a pretty common path. Yeah. That wasn't ours. Like, we both did some framing in places, but it was more commercial construction, and then decided to make a pivot into running our own business.
Okay. So tell me about let's first talk about the remodel side, and then we'll jump into the new build side. So what are you seeing as new remodel trends, or where are you seeing people make mistakes in remodeling? Like, give us the insider baseball on remodeling kitchens, bathrooms, homes, popping a top, etc.
Yeah, sure. So trends wise, I think we tend to follow what a lot of the designers recommend and do. We do in-house design, but we will readily tell clients we're not a interior designer or an architect that you would go to for, marquee design. We bring that in-house, and sometimes we manage it, and sometimes we just work with clients already pre-selected designers. From trends and things that we're building, there is a large push towards more of a traditional style design, moving away from modern. So it's a little bit softer, a little less harsh and rectilinear box style, like the very European modern. We still build that, but it's more of what it would be craftsman or shaker or even like a British style of interiors. And it's a little bit more intimate and cozy, a little bit less wide open. So we see a lot of that. Probably the biggest downfall and challenge in doing a renovation is clients and designers that aren't thinking through the holistic picture and starting too soon. And a lot of the decision making is happening on the fly. And one of the things that as a company we try to be really good at is driving decisions as early as possible and providing good quality data and info to make decisions. But realistically, there's a lot of decisions that happen in a residential project toward the end. And so trying to not let a huge pile of avalanche decisions to decide right at the very end helps everyone. Inevitably, there's projects where decisions are thought through and you think you have the right answer, and then you get partway through the project and something changes, and a lot of it's client driven, which is totally their prerogative. But we try to arm them to make decisions better sooner and not get too stuck at the end, because it's really hard to finish and stay on budget when decisions are happening all the way to the very end of a project.
So give me some examples, right? There are some decisions where I'm sure it's hard to make early, and there are other decisions where it's wise to make them early. Like, what are those? How can if anybody's listening to this and thinking about remodeling, what do they need to think about or approach this with?
Yeah, I think the best tool that we see, and we help support this in-house and sometimes working with designers, is visualization of how a space actually feels. So the space layout and plan of the floor plan itself are super critical early in any design process. That's where you'd begin. But a big challenge that many people who don't work in construction and design every day struggle with is being able to visualize what a space feels like. And so getting people into a space that's similar, both by magnitude and scale of the space, but also the aesthetics and design styles, that it's hard to do that unless you take people on tours or you create renderings or some way to visualize the space. So not doing those things early, you always end up in a position where there are clients sitting in a room going, that's not what I expected. And next thing you know, you're trying to figure out, okay, well, what did you expect? We tried to work our way through this decision together. And we've learned a lot of the process of trying to help visualize when we think we understand what the client wants, and then it is different later. It's a lot because we didn't spend the time really beating up what their intended experience would be, how they visualize a space. Do they even actually recognize what they're looking at? When you're looking at a floor plan on a drawing is very different than living in a space.
For sure, yeah.
And trying to help do that as early as possible.
Yeah, I mean, we do that same thing in real estate, right?
Yeah.
Like, we like to say buyers are liars, which, I was on a call teaching some of our younger associates around the nation that buyers aren't liars. You just fail to ask great questions, right?
Sure.
And I think the coolest example we have in this arena is that everyone wants a soaker tub, right? But I can tell you 9 times out of 10 that soaker tub becomes the laundry dump ground or the, like, it just never gets used. And they think they want to come home and stress relief and climb into that soaker tub, but they never do, right? But they're envisioning this sort of stress relief, this sort of Zen moment. So then what you have to do is you have to say, okay, are you really going to use the tub, or are there other ways that you will actually go stress relief? Are there other ways that you will find zen? I've got friends and clients that get into their soaker tub 3 or 4 times a week, and I got them that never get into it. But us digging deep to really find out what's their heart after to be able to deliver it. That's great that you guys dig that deep.
Yeah, and another carryover to that is lots of contractors use procurement logs and things to try to track what the decisions are. I think one thing that sets us apart is we're not the guy that you're going to call to do a $20,000 fitness room. The way our business is set up, we're not really building small projects like that, except for friends and family that we're doing a lot of small things just to support them. But most of our projects that we're doing direct to client are larger scale, and there's a lot of moving parts, and we're not beholden to a product list or vendor list that's here's your 3 choices. We allow that to be pretty wide open, and it does infuse a variability in terms of how the selection process goes, which if we drive those decisions sooner and we settle on finishes and cabinet choices and things, then it's more predictable as we go. But the reality is when you're not beholden to a certain list of products, then clients can spin. So we work really hard to make sure that there's tiers or phases is probably a better way to put it. These 3 decisions are important right now. And these are the next 3 that I want you to think about, but we don't need them until X date. And trying to kind of go through that systematically. Meanwhile, we have to, on the front end, set a budget that's achievable. So there's this balance, and this is maybe a commercial pre-construction game that we always played, is set a budget that's possible and also tight enough that it meets the client's needs of not spending too much, and then work through the decisions to make sure that they're staying on budget and on time and meeting the aesthetic target. That's a fine game to do. In a small single room context, that's easier. Yeah. In a large scale renovation of a house, there's a lot of things to track.
Yeah. One, costs can go crazy, especially if you're like, oh yeah, I'll take that better tile and that better granite, and can you just do this over here, and could you just do this, just ticks it up.
Well, and you like your comment about the soaker tub. Everyone has a couple of rooms in their house, and kitchen is always on the top of the list, but how you use a kitchen and what are the important elements of it. You could spend 50 grand in a nice kitchen, and you can spend 250 grand in a nice kitchen in a heartbeat. And it's just a matter of making some choices and, what's the key driver, and is this a 5-year space or a 50-year space?
Sure.
How are you using it?
Do you actually DoorDash, or you want your kitchen to look gorgeous? Right. Is way different than somebody like me who absolutely loves to cook. Right. And I need that thing as functional as possible, and I want the best oven I can possibly find. Yeah. Totally. So, all right. Now, moving on is there anything else on renovations or, well, actually, here's a great question. How are trades? Are you struggling getting trades? Are you seeing the cost of trades go up, go down? What's going on in the whole subcontractor world?
Yeah, there definitely are a few trades that are a struggle. There's enough work going on in the marketplace in the Denver metro and the mountains that if you're a competent trade and you're responsive, you can continue to do work without too much trouble. There are a few trades that there aren't as many highly qualified people. A good example is finished carpentry. There are a few finished carpenters around. They get tapped on projects by multiple contractors or clients, and they're capped in their capacity. And so we're all competing for that amount of attention and space. What's happening in terms of the market is their work slides, and so projects that get started are the ones that get attention from trades. And if you're a GC that communicates pretty well and proactively, you tend to be able to get their attention and get them locked in. So we don't typically struggle with getting trades on to projects. But one big struggle, and we try really hard to communicate with our subs, is we compete with ourselves when we have 3 or 4 or 8 projects going on, is this project is important today, and sometimes the other project is also important that same day, and trying to have a good conversation early on before we get to tomorrow is important, that 3 weeks, 6 weeks ahead, we're having the conversation. So our own projects internally aren't competing for the same resources.
Sure.
And that helps. It's still not perfect, right? Because we do enough work that we can keep some trades busy a lot, but not fully. And so they're working for other GCs or clients, and so we're competing with the marketplace as a whole. And that's probably the biggest struggle, is just trying to have a predictable schedule that they can rely on. They can show up and be efficient. And that's definitely a commercial construction mindset, is we have a pretty organized trade flow and how it happens on a project. If we get derailed, we know really keenly how much of an impact that is on the subs. We're not perfect by any means, and so there's still struggles, and that gets derailed, and then trying to find the resources to come right away is still a challenge. I think the high skill trades are diminishing in the capacity in the marketplace. Finished carpentry is one. Really highly skilled masons is another one.
God, I don't even know if I know a mason anymore.
Yeah, there's a few, right? And some of them are really super high, capable, but they're booked forever because of their capability. So trying to find those and not poor boy a project, especially the high-end luxury products, making sure that the right person is on the job to do it well. Yeah, we do struggle with that.
Yeah. I mean, I think if you were 18 years old right now and you didn't, want to go into college or anything else, go into one of these trades. Electrician, plumber, mason,
For sure.
anything of this nature, right? One, AI can never disrupt you, right? I don't think a robot will put together your electric panel anytime soon.
Sure.
And we're at a huge deficit of them.
Oh, yeah.
Like, I can't, we refer clients out all the time to a bunch of trades. And we struggle to keep more than 2 trades on our roster of reliable people that have a good, quality, that they get the work done, they're there on time, and they're reasonably cost.
Yeah, and the marketplace has space for trades of all kinds, and we don't have so little work that it's like piranhas and everyone's competing against each other and trying to eat each other. There is enough work especially if you're highly skilled. The biggest challenge is the companies that are doing a great job get tapped by people like us, and then they overcommit, and then they're either trying to scale and trying to implement systems that they didn't need before. And so there's this growth trajectory balance of taking on work that they want to because their reputation says they should, and trying to figure out if they can actually manage it and get it done. And we're our own worst enemy in that regard too. Sometimes we'll tap a certain trade 3 or 4 or 5 times in a row because they've done great work. And next thing you know, we're competing against ourselves, like I said, and then we start creating our own problem. So trying to find balance and measure in that is always an ongoing game. Yeah, I tell my kids all the time, if you're interested in doing something that your education needs a college degree, then by all means, let's go and try to figure that out. But there's these incredible opportunities to create businesses, learn a skill, do some, and masonry I brought up earlier, but there are quite a few of those where if you can bring something to the market, you can have endless work. And as long as you're able to communicate and learn the discipline of saying no, you can pretty much do something forever.
Yeah.
And
No, I agree.
build an amazing business.
Yeah. Yeah. And, the best thing you can do to teach your kids if they're going to go the trade route is a little bit of business skills, because I love my electrician to death. I love my plumber to death. They're not the best business mindset. Mm-hmm. And if they applied some great business skills, they could grow, they could scale, etc. But they're also very happy having a really, really great life, that the phone's always ringing, food's always on the table, etc. Right?
Yeah, and there are a lot of people who there's a certain breed of individuals that are very entrepreneurial. They love to start things, but their skill set in operating a business is lower. And marrying those two things together, there's a few individuals. Like, I'm a starter, and I can do an okay job of executing, but the big reason that I have a business partner is he's phenomenal at delivering outcomes. Yeah. And we try to work together to make sure that we're committing to things that we shouldn't, committing to things that we can deliver and not over committing to things that we shouldn't. Yeah. And we're in the middle of bringing on another business partner that helps with the design side, And next thing you know, we're going to be doing more design and more projects and trying to figure out, can we deliver them? And so we know the tension of that, but there's an ongoing process all the time of, we can sell more work than we can do. Can we show up and get the work done? And being disciplined about saying no. It's an ever ongoing lesson to learn. Sure. It never ends. Learning to say no just seems like it's always there.
Well, I think you have two problems in business, right? I think it's every business. You either have growth problems or you have not growth problems.
Yeah, for sure.
And both are problems. Both have to be managed, and they have different issues and consequences, et cetera. But I'd much rather have growth problems at the end of the day than non-growth problems.
Yeah, and we've been measured. Like, I took over a business that a friend of mine started, and they grew the business as a custom home building company, and more than half the revenue every year was building new ground up custom homes, and they would do a few infill projects doing renovations. And that's pretty much what we started doing when I got involved full time in 2024. And slowly that's grown to now we've got multiple custom homes going up at the same time, and a handful of renovation projects. And we've kind of got a group that is dedicated to doing that work. And so those resources are really good at the reno work, whereas ground up is another skill set that takes a little bit further view lens and the schedule of a project. Yeah. And the commercial work is our background. That's probably the hardest one for us to be really disciplined around saying no, because our network feeds us opportunities to do commercial work, and trying to figure out, like, a commercial project can suck all your resources immediately if you're not careful.
For sure. So on the remodel side, are you seeing a uptick in remodeling? I would guess so, because of what I call the 2% golden handcuffs, right? Like, you bought this house whenever, you refinanced it 2022, right? 21. Sure. You have a 2 point whatever percent interest rate. It is the dumbest thing in the world to let that go. But the house starts to not function the way you want it to, or it starts to feel a little dated. Let's go drop 150, 200 grand into it. Are you seeing that a lot more?
Yeah, a lot. The way I would phrase it is that there's a bandwidth of resources available for any client that we work with. And if you're doing a large scale renovation, I'd say $500,000 and above, where you're touching the kitchen, the master bathroom, the miscellaneous finishes all over the house, that kind of project is being compared to, should we go buy a parcel and build something new? Sure. And they're using the same pool of resources to do that type of work. It could be equity, it could be the cash on hand that they have available, wherever they're finding that money. They could go to either of those projects. One of them is, we love our house and the interest rate maybe is something. We love the location. The other is, do we consider something brand new that is tailored exactly to what we want today? Yeah. And balancing that, you're beholden to a floor plan when you get something that you've been living in. Correct. So you can't do quite as much. So yeah, we're playing that game with clients a fair amount. And the ones that are doing renovations that we've run a lot of work on recently are doing that because they love the area. I don't know if the interest rate is the key driver. I think it's more the location. Interesting. And they want to be in an area.
Yeah, like Wash Park, right? Like, you just bought a lot in Wash Park, and we'll get to that. But there's not, it's not easy to grab a lot in Wash Park at a value rate that you could scrape it and build whatever you want.
Sure.
That's hard. It has to be close to or at land value, or you can't scrape it. So you better remodel Wash Park.
Right. Or in an area like Wash Park or Observatory Park, you maybe don't have the opportunity to move into another home, even if it's temporarily for rent, and cash flow two situations. And so you do a renovation, and there are a number of clients that are in a percentage that's narrow that have the cash and the wherewithal that they could rent a space, and they could go kind of wherever. And they might have two houses, so they live in one and fix the other. There's a much larger group of people who are trying to figure out, can I stay here and do a renovation that's not so invasive that our house is just totally disrupted?
Yeah, for 8, 9, 10 weeks.
Yeah, right. Yeah, and it could be 2 months or it could be 8, depending on how much work you're doing.
So let's jump into the new build side, right? Custom homes, new building. If I'm wanting to think about buying a parcel of land or building a house, what are the things that I should think about, right? Because I do have the ability to go remodel typically in these price points, or even up in the mountains. Like, what should I be thinking about if I want to start from ground zero?
Yeah, I think the number one is, where do you want to be? And the location in, mountains is a perfect example, because there are pockets of the mountains that have different things that attract different people. You have a steamboat type client that doesn't want to be in Aspen, but they want to have a marquee town in the mountains. Or you have a Grand County because it's accessible from Denver a little bit more readily. And so the target location for sure is going to drive probably the first 5 or 10 evaluation points. After that, it's all about, how do you use it? What are you trying to accomplish? In infill context in Denver, like the lot you mentioned that we bought in Wash Park, that you can only build so much because the Denver requirements for zoning allow for a certain set of criteria, and that's pretty limited in terms of how big of a house you can build and how much lot you can cover. Whereas in other parts of the city or in the mountains, for sure, you can build a much larger home, more spread out floor plan. And so how do you want to use the house, and what are you trying to do with it? If Wash Park is the location, then you have a certain house that fits in that, and you can mess with a few things architecturally, but not nearly so many as if you bought a property in Douglas County.
For sure. Yeah.
Yeah, or Erie's another place that's blowing up and has a lot of activity going on. Its proximity to the mountains, there are some lots that you can buy a half acre old ranchette, and some that are you can buy a house that's been there for 50 to 70 years and scrape it and build something brand new, exactly what you want. No constraints other than you can only cover so much of the lot. On a 2-acre lot,
Sure.
you could never build a house that big.
Yeah. Well, then you could even go crazy, like in Kiowa, where there's almost no regulations, and you could build a castle if you so desire. I don't know if that's wise, but
Sure. It's totally client driven in that context. Like, if we're building for ourselves speculatively, we aren't going to do something like that. But
no, of course not. That'd be insane. Because you wouldn't get any. That's so unlikely to get a return.
sure. Yeah, and I think one thing I would like, if you came to me not as a broker like you are, but it's someone who is looking for property, I would definitely refer them to you or someone like that does what you do, because finding the properties with those attributes, our skill set isn't finding the land. Our skill set is helping understand what to deliver and build in the right scale and the dollar value and setting a budget. So my first couple of questions would be, what are you trying to accomplish in terms of size of the house, where does it want to be, and approximate budget? And if it's a wide variety of options in terms of location, then you would be someone definitely to have on the Rolodex to call and figure out, okay, where is this going to be? Meanwhile, if you said, I want to build a house and it could be anywhere from Kiowa to Erie, there's the price for a house isn't going to be that dramatically different.
No.
But if it's in Kiowa, it's a little more expensive than probably if you were building it within the 470 loop.
Sure.
Right, and just distance wise and getting trades out to where the projects are.
I think you touch on something that I want to dig a little bit more into, and I think you touched on it earlier. Is when you take on a client, you do have some of these aspects in house, right? But you make sure you develop a team that executes and meets everything the client needed, right? And I think if you're going to go do a new build as well, you should get with that same team, or get with a team that helps you understand, yes, you could build this, but will it have value 10, 15 years down the road? I tell clients all the time, call me before you go remodel your kitchen or bathroom, not because I want to send you the trades I have, and I do want to introduce you because I know they're great and they won't take advantage of you. But the other thing is, I want to make sure that you're doing some of the things, or at least what things are going to bring you value in the future and what things you might do that would destroy value.
Yeah, and I think that's a good conversation that you and I have had on a few elements on this Wash Park deal. Is what are the things that you see clients are interested in? We don't want to build something that was interesting yesterday. We want to build something that's interesting tomorrow, that is driving the right attributes of a project. And I think maybe what you're referring to is, we're not interior designers.
Right.
So having a couple people that are good teammates and resources that we can partner with is hugely valuable, and it's very important. You know, we don't want to in-house that skill set and be super vertically integrated. That's just not a wise move in terms of how we operate our business. But a broker, a great interior designer, you know, just like our subcontractor pool, we don't build all these things with our own resources. We go to the trades.
Yeah. Yeah. You develop the teams. Yeah.
Yeah, completely.
All right. Let's jump into Franklin because I'm excited to talk about it.
Yeah.
Unless there's anything else that you wanted to touch on between, you know, remodeling, new builds, anything else you just want if you're like, I wish people just knew this. This is because I have 50 million followers, Jesse. I don't know if you know. That.
Yeah, it wouldn't surprise me. That I think probably the biggest thing that I would say, and I probably am overly generous with my time for people we don't even do work with, is if we can help you or you can help yourself identify your budget and your desired scope outcome, we can help very quickly give a sense of direction or a sense of realism. And you know, I used to joke, and I think this is still true, but in commercial construction, a big part of my job was selling work and getting it to start. But in the other side of the coin was, we joked that I was a developer dream crusher. And meaning developers have these grand ideas, and a lot of them are viable. Some of them are not viable whatsoever. And a 5-minute phone call to say, hey, does this work? And getting the right answer, yes or no, or yes, but, is a vastly important thing for any client. And so I think getting smarter about that and calling the right people, you know, it doesn't have to be us, but just getting that information is a big part of it doesn't matter if it's commercial, residential renovation, new build, start off on the right foot.
Sure.
And you know, that I can kill your dreams in 5 minutes, or I can give you a sense of hope, right? And you'd rather know that going into your next step than just guessing.
Right. Well, and you know, you call it the dream killer, right? But I think you're just fair, honest, and upfront with people, so that way they don't get in over their skis or they jump into a project that ends up running away. And I think a lot of people are afraid to be taken advantage of by construction people, right? It's almost like construction people are the new, you know, car mechanics. Or like, you know, 25 years ago, you're like, do I really need that transmission? Or are you just making me need that transmission to, you know, pay your things? There are some people in the industry that I think way overcharge or way overbid or, you know, et cetera. They take advantage of people, and you're not that.
Yeah, and I guess that maybe the punctuation before we move into the Franklin property is, we try to do everything we can to have all the information in front of a client. Partly because of transparency and honesty, but also because the more information that you have to make good decisions, the better. And so a client of mine recently said, your invoice was way more detailed and transparent than I would have expected. And I think that comes from the reputation that contractors of, you know, a wide variety of small reno guys all the way to the big guys, they maybe don't share as much info. Some of that's being lazy, and some of that's just because they're trying to, you know, manage a situation. And, you know, surely we're all trying to be as efficient as possible, but there is a reality that I want you to have the utmost confidence in everything that you're doing with us. And so, you know, how do we build that confidence? Sometimes that amount of information is overwhelming, and a client's like, I don't need all that. Yeah. But I'd rather start there and them say, we don't need the information.
Yeah, that would be me. I'd be like, could you just dial this down to like when it's done and how much I owe you by when? That's all I need.
Yeah, like, but in a 50-page invoice is overwhelming to some clients. And
oh my God.
Yeah, others will go through every line item on every page.
Oh, for sure.
And we want them to be able to do that, right? And and then to say, okay, next time, that's fine.
Yeah, that's fair. All right, let's get into Franklin. Yeah. So you bought a piece of property on Wash Park. Now, correct me if I'm wrong. Wasn't it one of the larger lots?
It's a little larger than normal. So the typical Denver double, the 6,250 square foot lot, is all over town. This one's 8,050. So it's 1,800 square feet bigger than the normal lot.
Yeah, it's a good size.
Yeah, so we can build a wider house And I suppose we could build a bigger footprint if we wanted to. Gets to be a little awkward based on just architecture, but yeah, it's a little bigger than normal.
Well, and it's on probably arguable one of the coolest streets in all of Colorado,
Sure.
Franklin, right? Because it faces Wash Park. So tell me a little bit about this project.
Yeah, so we, thanks to you, had the opportunity to buy this property. What attracted us to it first and foremost was, one, it's on Franklin, but not only is it park facing, it's west facing. And there's a section of Franklin that's maybe 20 houses total that has an open view that's unobstructed by the trees, meaning the trees that are right on Franklin. Yeah. So this still has trees in the view, which is amazing. But we have peak views of Mount Blue Sky now that is uncommon. And I had asked you a couple weeks ago if you could share where are all the properties on a park with a west view in Denver. And
I give you like 4.
Yeah, there's
over
the
last
maybe
5
there's
years.
50 in the city that are on a marquee park with a west facing view. So that got us interested, and so now we own it and have it under control. We're submitting for permit based on a spec build, and that's going into the city this week, which this is the last week of March. The goal would be to have something reviewed and approved, as soon as Denver allows, in their kind of normal process of review, to start construction this summer or late summer at the worst. If someone came in and said, "Hey, we'd love that lot, but redesign," by all means, we'd hit pause and think about going through a design process with a client. And there's multiple ways to onboard that. What we're designing is a house that has a lot of attributes of what's around in terms of Wash Park, because it's not a historical neighborhood like some of the ones closer to Cap Hill, but it has a lot of historical attributes with the cool bungalows and brick buildings, and there's some of the design elements that we want to carry forward. So those are going to show up in our design. We're trying to do a few things that, because of our larger lot, are uncommon, not only facing the park, but just in the Wash Park East neighborhood in general. We're currently designing a main floor master and a second floor master. So, mother-in-law type of a use, and then a great room with a 2-story volume. One thing that's definitely a unique attribute in our design compared to what most of the properties in not just Wash Park, but Denver infill lots in general, a 2-story volume is really uncommon based on the kind of tighter lots. Yeah. It's pretty expensive in terms of the square footage of a house to have a 2-story volume. Our wider lot lets us do that and still build a 5,000 or 6,000 square foot house.
And it's also just a lot more profitable to roof that off, right? At 6, 7, or this going to be much more than 6, 7.
Yeah, to build square footage.
Yeah, right? Like, it's that land or that second story has a lot of value to it.
Right. And so I think that's a big differentiator in terms of what we're starting with in our design. The end goal, if someone came and said, "Hey, we want to take basically what you've designed, but make some adjustments," we're all ears. The on-ramp to do that is different today versus when we've got construction going and foundations are in the ground.
Sure.
But I think maybe a way to punctuate what I was saying about kind of the renovation and custom home and using our procurement log, we're not beholden to a set of vendors and material lists. We're not beholden to a set of floor plans that we build a million times. We are wide open in terms of letting clients have voice and say. And there's a lot of risk that you take on if you be completely custom in terms of how you approach a project. So we realize that, and so we try to guide clients to making good decisions. But if someone came and said, "We want to wholesale change this," we would listen. Would we say yes to it? Maybe, depending on kind of the terms and the approach and what does it mean to us as a business, right? Having a property under control that has land value of during construction, the land value is just the dirt. We got to get to the end, and so diffusing some of that cash need by finding the right deal, we can entertain that all day long.
Yeah. Well, but you'll also find that, I know some of the other builders that build in the park, and not all of them are willing to entertain somebody coming in and, redoing a bunch of the design work, regardless of, I think you're hinting at, we're willing to do it if there's some escrow deposits that are pretty hard, et cetera. But there are people that are just like, we're not going to do it. We're not scaled for it. We're not interested in it. We've had those headaches, et cetera. But you are truly, if it makes sense for all parties, financially and whatnot, we'll do anything. Like, you are really bespoke.
Yeah. And the reason for that is we find that one of the key reasons why people work with us is we're willing to meet them where they are and what they're trying to accomplish. We don't come with a high-end list of vendors only or a low-end list of vendors only. We're willing to entertain both. And a lot of projects, actually, we are dealing with both sides of that spectrum.
Sure.
And so yes, to answer most directly is we're willing to go dance.
Yeah, no, that's great. Who's the team you've assembled for the Franklin property?
Yeah, so we're doing the architecture and structural engineering in-house. We've got an interior designer that is Lauren Collender, and she's so far helped with kind of space planning and initial concepts, and we're kicking them off to get into the weeds on actually putting a really nice interior package together. And then we've got a couple of resources that names that people wouldn't know, just relationships that we have that are helping with architecture and kind of the outside. And then you and I need to pencil the details of it in, but working with you to help us get this thing sold and get the right buyer out there.
Absolutely. We'll get it off the ground for you.
Yeah. And then all the trades that are building all of our stuff, a lot of them are already aware and in the loop and interested. We just need to get to the place where we're ready to knock the house over and start on the new one.
Perfect. Well, Jesse, if people wanted to get a hold of you to talk about either building them a house, remodeling, or whatnot, how do they do that?
Yeah, the simplest is our website's fhgbuilders.com. Then my info is right there on their cell phone and email. They can reach me directly. They can hunt around online and find certain info, but yeah, definitely go to the website, see some of the work we've done. We're in the middle of revamping it, so the old one is still there and everything looks good in terms of the info, but we're going to have a new website soon, maybe by the time this goes live.
Perfect. All right, Jesse, thanks so much for joining me. I think this was absolutely awesome. I really hope people reach out to you because finding a good builder out there is a lot harder than you think, both in remodeling and building from scratch. So I think the world of you, and I can't wait to see what you do with Franklin.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks for letting me sit here and chat a little bit and share what we do.
Yeah. Hey, this is Rob Tate. Thanks so much for joining us on this latest episode. Really appreciate it if you'd like and subscribe for us. Also, drop something in the comments. If there's somebody you want to see, if there's a question you have, or you just want to interact with us on anything that was said, happy to do that. We're really looking forward to engaging with you. Like, subscribe, and catch you on the next one.